We'd like to thank all of you for coming, and we're very excited to present our 4 amazing student speakers.
As you may have noticed, our event is centered around a theme, Diverge, and today we are witnessing the sprawl of ideas.
And it is symbolic today, because we are all in the same high school, but eventually we'll all diverge into our own paths in a few months, in a few years, in 10 years, and beyond.
Each presenter spent long nights and many coffee dates with their topic, perfecting their speeches.
Getting as close to as they would their bae.
You know the feeling.
No, not like, no. Like, I mean, like we're all in high school, and we all get the feels, and, wait, why are you asking this?
You'll see, explained by our first speaker, Alston.
Ladies and gentlemen, every day innocent lives are condemned to the cold, desolate zone of friendship. We as a human race put such emphasis on the environment, health, education, yet we turn a blind eye to such moral atrocities. Enough of this. Today, I, a totally credible 15-year-old who spends half his day reading romance manga, will set things straight. I will teach you to escape the friend zone. I will teach you the 3-step art of attracting bae, or as I like to call it, abs. So, the first step of abs is something I dub the friend zone stage. And yes, in this stage, you will be throwing yourself into the friend zone. Trust me, it's totally worth it because the trade-off will be a good, strong rapport, which is really just a psychological term for closeness and friendship. I know it seems counterintuitive, forcing yourself into something you want to get out of, but it's important to keep in mind that rapport is romance's spine. Or at least that's what Wikipedia says. So we want to build rapport, and I've condensed this into 2 main points. One of them is self-disclosure. Share important details and secrets about yourself, and have bae share theirs. Tell them things that you would never tell anybody, like your happiest and saddest memories, or how you cry at the end of every romance manga, or even your soft spot for Justin Bieber fanfiction. Finding common ground is also a good side quest for this, while self-disclosing, because research shows that people are attracted to the similar. So number 2 is mirroring. This is where you mirror bae's actions. So essentially this amplifies your empathetic side. If bae compliments you, compliment them back. If they like a picture on your Facebook timeline, go like all the pictures on theirs and then claim your account was hacked. Never done that. This can even go so far as to subtly copying their body language and speech mannerisms. For example, let's say they ask, do you like dank memes? Well, instead of a simple yes, this is a great opportunity to mirror both their wording and their body language. You could say, yes, I do like dank memes. And now, I know at first this sounds like a strenuous task, but please keep in mind that as you begin to get closer to them, you'll begin to unknowingly and unconsciously mirror them. So once your rapport is as solid as Bieber's new album, it's time to move on to the cognitive behavioral stage, or as I like to abbreviate it or call it, the vaguely manipulative technique stage. And in this stage, you're trying to make bae invest ample time and resources into you. This will separate you from the other friends in the friend zone and hopefully lift you out of that cold, desolate place. So drawing from cognitive and cognitive behavioral, let's look at 2 phenomenons, the foot in the door phenomenon and cognitive dissonance. So the foot in the door is a compliance strategy where you get people to accept large requests by having them complete smaller ones first. I know it sounds questionably ethical, but as Shia LaBeouf once said, just do it. Don't let your memes be dreams. So have bae complete small favors like borrowing a pencil and gradually work them up to larger favors like helping you with homework. And once they're doing large favors for you, they will experience cognitive dissonance. And this is inconsistencies between thoughts and behaviors. On one hand, their thoughts dictate that you are just a friend, but on the other, they're investing a peculiar amount of resources into just a friend. And because the mind doesn't like its thoughts beefing, it'll start to rationalize and hopefully to romantic attraction. I am investing so many resources in just a friend because I must be attracted to them. So the second one, behavioral and cognitive behavioral. Who knows who B.F. Skinner is? Come on, any of y'all SAP or psych people? No? Nobody? See, look, Brian knows. So B.F. Skinner was a behavioral psychologist who presented a caged rat with a lever. Whenever the lever was hit, food was dispensed, and soon the rat learned to associate the two, and it spammed the lever faster and faster. Now, Skinner called this a Skinner box. Applying this to abs, I want you all to imagine your bae as, a hotter humanoid rat. Every time they spend time with you, they're really just pressing a metaphorical lever. All you have to do is you have to dispense the powerful rewards like compliments and fun. And soon, Bay should link your time together with the pleasurable rewards and feel compelled to talk to you more. So let's do a quick recap. At this point, use cognitive dissonance and the Skinner box to increase attraction. And before that, you've built a good rapport through self-disclosure and mirroring. Ladies and gentlemen, I now give you the final stage of the abs. Love them. Now I know you're thinking, if I didn't love them, why would I use this on them? Well, in that case, I should correct myself. Love all of them. Because it's so easy to get caught up in their beauty, to get caught up in their pretty face or cheerful personality that we forget. Forget about when the makeup and hair gel comes off, or when it's difficult to be cheery. Forget that when you love somebody, you love them whole. This is a wise Tumblr blogger once said. Someone who really loves you sees what a mess you can be, how moody you get, how hard you are to handle, but still wants you in their life. And it is this stage that is the mitochondria that powers abs. It is the mitochondria that powers love. Because it's the mitochondria that powers love. So love your loved ones, because really, if you take a step back and let the pieces fall together and look at the bigger picture, it's really the best thing anybody could ask for. I should know. I'm 15. Thanks.
First of all, that speech really hit me in the feels.
I wonder if this will be useful in the future.
Well, I know Diverge is about moving towards the future, but sometimes we have to reflect on the past in order to do so.
Some empires in the past invented amazing things that are applicable today.
One of the most accomplished empires in the past is the Aztec Empire, and let's welcome Freya!
Hi everyone, my name is Freya and I'm in grade 10, and I'm really interested in history, activism, and fiction writing. And today I'm here to share my passion for my favorite ancient civilization ever. It was the first civilization in history to make education mandatory for all its citizens, had the most accurate calendar system of its time, and also created a beautiful city that was so magnificent that it led Spanish explorers to call it the Venice of the Americas. I've been obsessed with this civilization for so long now that my friends think it's getting out of hand. And it's just that people think I'm really obsessive and nobody gets me. So today I'm here to explain why. I'm also here today because I've noticed that we're very fortunate to live in a really culturally diverse society. And I wanted to celebrate this diversity by talking about a culture that you may not know much about. And I think this fits our Diverge theme extremely well today. So, for the duration of this presentation, I want you to try letting go of any misconceptions and stereotypes you may have about Indigenous people, and try to think about their accomplishments and all that we have to learn from them instead. For example, think of this. When you picture democracy in the ancient world, what do you think of? Most people would say they imagine the white-robed senators of ancient Greece and Rome. And that's really great, but what you should be thinking about is the Iroquois Confederacy, as it was one of the first democracies in North America, and it was the basis for the Canadian and American ideas of democracy that many people hold very dearly today. Also, Professor Michael Smith from the University of Arizona has pointed out that democracy may have sprung up in other parts of the Americas as well. He points to the ruins of an ancient city called Teotihuacan in Mexico, and he basically says that there's very similar looking buildings throughout for housing, and because of that, this fosters a sense of equality among the people. And there aren't any huge palaces for rulers or nobles or anything like that. So archaeologists have speculated that a governing assembly could also have met here. This idea of equality existed in a lot of indigenous societies, not only in the ones that were democratic. For example, in the book Encyclopedia of American Indian Contributions to the World, it has been suggested that the Inca Empire had some of the first laws ever protecting people with disabilities. And for example, if you were blind, you would be given employment in the form of removing husks from corn or maybe cleaning cotton or something like that, and whatever you still couldn't afford would be provided to you by the government. The indigenous people also had a lot of cool inventions, and some examples include snowshoes, chocolate, and artificial hives for beekeeping, and sunglasses. So to get an accurate idea of where these people lived, here's a map showing some major civilizations in the Americas. And the particular civilization I'll be focusing on today can be defined in time and space to be in the Valley of Mexico from the 1300s to the 1500s. So without further ado, I present to you the Mexica civilization. So the word Mexica was the word that the Aztecs used to refer to themselves. But they're more commonly known as the Aztecs now. And because the terms are referring to the same group of people, I'll be alternating between them. And I'll be talking about the origins, accomplishments, and the downfall of the Mexica civilization. So when it comes to their origins, the Mexica were originally a nomadic group, but eventually they settled in the Valley of Mexico, and they were known to have a really fierce and warlike nature, as they also did human sacrifices. And so the neighboring states of the area didn't really trust the Mexica at first, and no one wanted to ally themselves with the Mexica. So the Mexica were driven to a swampy wasteland near Lake Texcoco, where they were forced to eat snakes and insects to survive. Despite these harsh conditions, the Mexica decided to settle in the area. And this was because there's basically this old story that goes that one day the Mexica saw an eagle landing on a cactus. And the priests interpreted this as a sign that they should start a civilization there. And they interpreted it as a sign from the gods. The Mexica were also very inspired by the ruins of Teotihuacan, the city which I mentioned earlier. And what's really cool is that this civilization was actually in ruins even in Aztec times. And to this day, archaeologists still do not know who built Teotihuacan. But the Aztecs were so in awe of it that they imagined that it had once been inhabited by gods, and they based a lot of their architecture off of Teotihuacan. Eventually, the Mexica began to gain more respect in the area as people figured out that they made really good warriors, so they were hired as mercenaries by many states. And as they grew richer, they launched a series of ambitious building projects. And the first thing they did was they brought up mud from the lake bed, and they used this to create islands. This was also one of the most highly productive agricultural systems of the ancient world. They also drove millions of wooden stakes into the lake bed to be used as foundations for very large buildings such as pyramids. And what's interesting to note is that the city of Venice in Italy was actually constructed in a very similar way to this. So eventually the island city began to expand, and they connected it using causeways to the mainland, and they also had aqueducts to bring in fresh water. This city became known as Tenochtitlan, which not surprisingly means place of the prickly pear cactus, because it refers to the cactus in that legend about the eagle landing on a cactus. So now I'll be talking about the accomplishments of the Mexica, and I've divided this into two categories. So there's things that have to do with their society and things that have to do with more like science and technology. So first of all, I'll be talking about their society. So the first thing you should know about Mexica society was that it was extremely authoritarian, and this is why it is often criticized as the government had a huge intervention in people's lives. So this meant that you would have to pay a huge amount of taxes, and also the punishments were very harsh. For example, if you were drunk in public or you committed adultery, you would be executed, usually in the form of strangulation. However, there were also many positive things that emerged from this society. For example, universal education and healthcare. The Mexica were actually the first civilization in history to have mandatory education for all their citizens. So it didn't matter if you were male or female, rich or poor, free or enslaved. You'd still have an access to education. And if you think about it, this was actually huge for women's rights because it meant that women would be educated. And this is huge because there's many women in our world today who still do not have access to education. Another thing which I find really interesting about the Mexica civilization are their views on slavery. So you may be thinking, if the Aztecs were so cool, then why didn't they just get rid of slavery altogether? So allow me to elaborate on this topic a bit more. So back then, being a slave was more like you were an indentured servant. So usually it was because you were paying off a debt or you had committed some kind of crime. And after you served your time, you would be allowed to go free. And if you were a slave, your owner was not allowed to mistreat you, and you still had an access to education because that was something that everyone had access to in the Aztec Empire. So what we can get out of this is basically that if you were a slave in the Mexica civilization, it's a lot better than being a slave in other ancient civilizations. One last thing I would like to mention about the society is that the noble positions weren't inherited, and also the nobles were punished a lot more harshly than the commoners. And so, for example, if you were drunk in public, you would be let off the hook the first time if you were a commoner and then executed the second time. But if you were a noble, you'd be executed right away. And so this prevented corruption in government officials. So think of how we can use things like this in our society today. Now I'll be talking about accomplishments that relate to the science and technology side of things. So the Mexica were very influenced by another civilization in the south, which was called the Mayans, and their civilization started much earlier than the Aztecs, and also after the Aztec Empire fell, the Mayans were still around for a really long time. And the Mayans were known to be super advanced in astronomy, and they had this type of tool, which was basically like intersecting bars that could give the coordinates of something in the sky. And with these surprisingly basic tools, they were able to actually have the most accurate calendar system of the ancient world. And so the Aztecs copied this calendar system, and it had 18 months of 20 days each. And they added 5 extra days at the end of the year that were considered unlucky to make that a total of 365 days. Another area that the Mexica were really advanced in was medicine, and they had many herbal remedies, and they also used steam baths for many common ailments such as fevers. And it's important to note that the Mexica society had a very good standard of hygiene, especially compared to Europe at the time, which is important because in the Mexica Empire you would have a much lower risk of diseases. And also the engineering of the Aztec Empire was very impressive, as they had aqueducts to provide Tenochtitlan with fresh water, and this consisted of a twin pipe system, so that if one of the pipes got dirty, the water could be diverted into the other pipe while the dirty pipe was cleaned. And this was an amazing accomplishment because they were able to provide water for all of their citizens. And if you think about it, there's some people in our world that still have to walk for miles just to get water, and there's people who have no access to clean water at all. Also, the Mexica, as I've mentioned earlier, they also had a very impressive agricultural system, which was made with artificially constructed islands, which they could plant crops on. And this was known as the Chinampa system, and was one of the most highly productive agricultural systems of the pre-industrial world. The Aztecs also had really advanced weapons, which were made with obsidian blades, and this was due to the fact that they were located very close to sources of volcanic rock. And the Spaniards wrote that the weapons were so sharp that they could cut off a horse's head in one blow. So speaking of weapons and Spanish conquistadors, it's now time to talk about the downfall of the Mexica Empire. So I'm sure you'll find this part interesting, as it was one of the most influential events in history. Some of the key players in it were Hernan Cortez, who was the leader of a group of 500 Spaniards, and his prior experience included that he had lived for many years in a Spanish colony in the Caribbean, and he had also heard tales of Christopher Columbus's voyages, which inspired him to try conquering the New World. So he was able to teach Spanish to an indigenous slave girl named Malinche, and today her name is actually used as an insult in Mexico to mean traitor. And she was very helpful in communicating with native rulers such as Moctezuma of the Aztecs. So Cortez and his men, basically they tried capturing Tenochtitlan, but the first time they failed, so they had to get more reinforcements from Spain, and they also had many African slaves helping them, and also thousands of indigenous allies that were tired of paying taxes to their Aztec overlords. So The Spaniards also had guns and cannons. However, these were not very useful at the time because firearms back then were a lot less reliable than today. But they did have a weapon of mass destruction that the Aztecs stood no chance against, and this was the foreign diseases that they brought in. So the Spanish conquest was very unexpected for the Aztecs. So today, the Aztec Empire is no more, but a lot of its legacy still lives on today, and it's a really key factor in shaping the Mexican identity today. Also, the Nahuatl language of the Aztecs is still spoken in Mexico today in some parts, and it's quite hard, the pronunciation, but you could learn it off the internet if you wanted to. And so basically, the Mexica today and indigenous people in general are very underrepresented in the media and school curriculum, and we don't really learn about their accomplishments and history that much. And we also constantly label them with terms that say more about the colonizer than the people who were colonized. So if there is one thing I want you to get out of this presentation, it's basically that you should try to be open to understanding other people's cultures and their accomplishments to the world, and also think about all we have to learn from indigenous people. And they had equality for women, they were able to provide their entire society with clean water, and they were very advanced in some ways which we still haven't accomplished today. Thank you for listening.
Every day we get to delve into someone's ancient past like that.
Indeed, an informative talk about the Mexica Empire by Freya.
And time really passes by quickly.
It sure does, but did you know that your metabolism slows down as you age?
And our next speaker, Dennis Du, will tell us his story about why you should get some more exercise and stay fit.
Hi guys. So a famous Roman poet once said, "Mens sana in corpore sano." And what this translates into is it's a healthy mind within a healthy body. Okay, so nowadays, everybody thinks that you can choose one pathway in life, whether to be a smart person or a strong person. And so back in ancient Rome, it wasn't like this. In ancient Rome, people believed that if you had a strong and a fit body, you would also have a strong and smart mind. And so this gets me to my presentation. Working out, is it for gains or is it for brains? And so we have a comic here. And this guy over here, man, he's jacked. And this guy over here, he's pretty smart, but he's small. So where do you work out? At the library. And this kind of shows what people think nowadays, that you can choose one way in life. When you start high school, are you going to join all the sporting events and focus on honing your body to be a crazy legit athlete? Or are you going to be a nerd and do calculus homework every day and do like math homework and chemistry homework every day and be the smartest you can and let your body go to waste? So what I'm getting is that there's a lot of scientific reasoning to why getting gains also gives you brains, and I'm here to talk about that. So let me tell you a little bit about a story of mine. So I started off in elementary school as a very overweight child. Now you see, I didn't win the genetic lottery. I wasn't smart and I wasn't strong, and so that's kind of unfortunate. However, I grew a lot, and now I'm standing here, and I think I'm sort of strong and slightly strong, which is a huge improvement. And let me tell you about how I became this way. So starting around in grade 5, my parents were really tired of me. I'm sitting at home, getting a 75% average, that's an Asian fail, and not going to any sporting events. And so eventually they sent me to camp, but it wasn't any ordinary regular camp. It was Russian camp. So what they did there, it was actually a boot camp. And they made me exercise every single day. Every single day, I'd be running around in the forest with a shirtless Russian chasing me and telling me to go faster because I was lagging behind during their crazy hiking trips, which are, by the way, off the trail and on private property. I'm not going to disclose the name of the camp because, you know, they might get sued. But anyways, I was working out every day and I wasn't knowing it. And on top of that, the food was also really bad. I remember seeing bugs in my food all the time, and my Russian friends would trick me into saying more in Russian when I didn't want any more. And so to give you an idea on how that camp was, I didn't poop for a week. And this basically goes hand in hand because I was at a great caloric deficit and I lost a lot of weight. But after that, my experiences with that, I grew as like a smarter person. Starting in grade 8, I really woke up. I hit a mental spurt. And all of a sudden, I jumped from a 75 average to high 80 average. And now all you guys know that it doesn't happen overnight. It was kind of like a gradual change. I kind of realized the world around me. And I kind of started working harder at my studies. And everything became more clear to me after that whole Russian camp experience. And so now let's talk about it scientifically. What actually happened to me during Russian camp? So, okay, so your body's response to exercise. So your body is a machine, a living machine that's constantly in a sort of balance. And we call this balance equilibrium, or in biological terms, homeostasis. What homeostasis is, it's your body's way of balancing all its chemical reactions to make sure that you're standing here and alive and operating as you would normally do. And so when you start to exercise, you disrupt this equilibrium. All of a sudden, your muscles need to work a lot harder. All of a sudden, all your cells need more oxygen. And all of a sudden, your cells all need more calories, which is energy. And so short term, you're going to feel like shit. So by this, like the people who started working out just recently, I know there's a bunch of you guys. Bima, Shirabi, I know Yassel too. Oh, you two too. Good job. So you're gonna feel like shit, and this is because your body can't compensate with all its new needs. Your body doesn't realize that it needs to repair its muscles all the way, and it doesn't realize that it needs to produce more energy, more red blood cells to circulate oxygen through your body, and you start to feel really bad. However, your body always reaches equilibrium. It always reaches a state of homeostasis that makes sure that you operate the way you are without dying. And so, things that can happen from this is BDNF. And what this is brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And wow, it's a really long word, but essentially what it does is it allows you to produce more neurons within your brain and your muscles. And neurons are cells that not only store information, but they also aid in the transfer of information. And the production of these neurons actually make you a smarter person, and you're able to recall more memories from the past and problem solve. And the increased red blood cells you get from working out actually increases your body's consumption of oxygen. More oxygen in your body to the cells means that your cells can work so much harder as they have more energy, and eventually you'll become a smarter person. And so new blood vessels will also develop within your body, and this also aids in oxygen transfer and capacity. And all in all, it's all about neurostimulation. When somebody's working out, they're just not mindlessly lifting weights, oh, I'm getting jacked, right? What they're doing is they're really focusing on the mind and muscle connection. How muscles work is we have something called a motor unit. And what a motor unit is, it's a single neuron that connects to multiple muscle fibers. Whenever your brain sends a signal, or a fire in this case, that motor unit contracts. And that's how you contract your muscles. When you're lifting weights, this motor unit kind of idea comes in play because you really have to focus on how many motor units you contract at a time. It's almost like playing an instrument. And all these factors actually improve your capacity of not only memory, but also learning. Since the healthier you are, the more information you're able to take and process. And so, physiologically, I've explained what happens. Let's talk about your behavior in response to exercise. There's repeated studies that have shown an increase in not only your ability to focus on work, but also your productivity when you start working out and doing exercise. And how this works is there's a stress hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is highly catabolic, meaning it destroys things within your body. And in particular, you can see like right here, the red stuff, that's your hippocampus. And its function is for a lot of memory and different like abilities to learn within your brain. And so cortisol actually destroys that. And cortisol is what makes you feel depressed, makes you feel like, oh, I hate my life. And exercising has actually shown to decrease levels of cortisol. And when cortisol decreases, your focus also increases, and it preserves your hippocampus right here. And all in all, like the third point is it boosts self-esteem. That doesn't really tie in with intelligence, but I kind of feel like if you're happy with the way you look, that's one thing out of your life that you're worried about, and you can focus on different things. Like I always had kind of like an anxiety of like taking my shirt off in public, because I would think, man, I have like no arms, like I'm small, and I kind of have like man boobs, so that was not worth. But now, like even though I still have man boobs and I don't think I've changed much, I'm confident that I've been like working out and I made progress, and I don't mind like taking off my shirt, but I will not do it in front of you guys. Okay, so your future too responds like to exercise. And so it's also shown that exercise decreases your risk for dementia, Alzheimer's, and reduces your risk for stroke, diabetes, and heart diseases. And so how this works, again, it plays in with cortisol. Exercise, it reduces cortisol levels that just tend to destroy your brain neurons, and also increases that protein that stimulates growth of neurons. And all of this actually protects your brain from different degenerative neuro diseases such as Alzheimer's, and allows you to live a longer life. Now, the thing is with learning things is that time is kind of like the limiting factor on how much you can learn. If you had infinite time, you can learn everything, right? And you see, it's kind of hard to believe that a lot of people, they forget about their health because they want to learn everything at once. However, if you were to maintain your health, you'd have so many more years on life to learn more things. And this is a given fact. I believe working out and just exercising adds another 10 to 15 years to your life, and that's a lot. How can you get gains? Who here wants to get gains? All the guys should have their hands up. Who wants to be swole? Wants to look like Aziz? You guys know Aziz? I have a picture of him later. Anyways, girls, you want to be doing moderate exercises, aerobics, or you can weight lift. And so what this does is increases your body's ability to process oxygen and also to hold oxygen. And these also allow you to be a smarter person over time. Working out increases your metabolic rate, so you also lose fat in the process. A lot of guys like to do a lot of weightlifting, and that's also really good in building muscle. Anytime you're at the gym breaking down your muscles, your body will be shifting its equilibrium in order to build those muscles back. And doing so, getting a gym membership is very, very important if you want to start working out. And then also sports, and this is limited to a few sports that pertain to my presentation. Not all sports gives you gains and gives you brains. Many high-risk sports such as wrestling, football, rugby, actually does the opposite. It makes you lose brains. And by this I mean because of the fact that they're so dangerous, you can get hit in the head and get a concussion. And even though your body's producing more of the protein that builds neurons, getting concussion can seriously impact your intelligence. It's been scientifically proven. But low-risk sports such as basketball, swimming, are all great for exercise. But then again, depending on what you do, you have to do research specifically on the exercise you want to achieve. And so I can give you 3 very important facts on how to get bear gains. And so, by the way, this is a picture of Aziz. Famous bodybuilder, but he took steroids. Okay, so number 1, diet is a secret to success. I would rather skip a workout than skip a diet, right? And what this means is, again, your body is a living machine. What you put in your machine is how your machine will function. You want to put good stuff into your machine for your machine to function properly. You can't build muscle if you don't eat enough protein. Proteins are the building blocks of muscles. You need to make sure you eat enough protein. You can't gain mass without eating calories. You can't be healthy eating in a caloric deficit. Your body's going to be taking nutrients it needs from your own body. You need to make sure that you put your diet as your number one priority. Skip a workout, eat a good meal. That's my number one tip. Number two, do not overtrain. Overtraining is the most common mistake beginners make at the gym. They think, oh my god, I'm gonna get so swole, I'm gonna get so jacked. And they run in and they do like 7 to 8 sets for like 20 reps of an exercise. And then they wake up in the morning and they're like, oh crap, I'm dead. And then they don't go to the gym for a month, and then they repeat that process and they look skinny. And so, you want your body to gradually change. Again, your body's at an equilibrium that makes sure that everything's functioning properly. You want to slowly disrupt this equilibrium so your body can slowly change. If all of a sudden you just tell your body, all right, I'm going to be an Olympic weightlifter, your body's obviously going to get injured. And this injury will really tax your ability to gain muscle or even fitness. And so third is train consistently. And I should have highlighted the word consistently. There's many people who are not consistent with working out. And this is the number one important method of working out. It's not about working to your max, working to like fatigue. It's about consistency. There's many people who they've been going to the gym longer than me, and I can lift more than them. And why is that? It's because I've been consistent with my workouts. I go 3 to 4 times a week. I don't overtrain myself. I just train until I'm sort of tired and I get out of the gym. And this consistency kind of tells your body, all right, this is my new lifestyle. I need to adjust to it. Any further, it would disrupt the equilibrium too much, and you really wouldn't give your body a set message on what to do. So I hope you guys enjoyed my presentation. If you have any questions, you can always ask me. And remember, everyone here should aspire to go into fitness, but don't overdo it. Overdoing anything is bad, and a good balance between study and fitness will aid in the best person. Thanks.
Thanks for inspiring us, Dennis. You want to get up, stretch a bit, grab a really, really healthy snack. Now's the time to do so. Please form a line where Will is.
Okay, so that was a funny talk. If you finished what you've been eating, please make sure that you dump your trash in the trash can. Don't toss it all over the place. We don't want to clean it up. So, are there any gamers out there, mathy, sciencey people?
Well, buckle in. This is a long topic. Game theory, the complex analysis of participant behavior and technological strategic solutions.
I don't think I'm smart enough to understand that. I'm not really into gaming.
But that's okay, because Brian Zhang is going to break it down for you in the simplest of terms.
Is this thing on? Okay. Hey guys. Alright. Okay, so in the year of 1990 in New York City, the city decided to temporarily close one of its streets in preparation for Earth Day to reduce the amount of cars on the road. However, something interesting happened. Even though the same amount of cars moved through the surrounding area as any other day of the year, the amount of congestion in the surrounding streets was actually less than compared to any other day of the year, contrary to what anybody would believe to happen with the loss of a road. Well, to normal people, to normal ordinary people, external factors such as psychological influence and personal preference would be the explanation behind this behavior. However, to a mathematician, the logic and reason surrounding this behavior would fall under the fascinating and riveting world of game theory. So, game theory is a complex analysis of the behavior of individuals in strategic situations and what leads them to perform their specific outcome in relation to both biological and psychological factors. So, mainly used in economics, science, and psychology, game theory allows any person capable of creating a mathematical model to analyze the course of action, the logical course of action that humans, animals, and even computers may take in a situation. So, game theory can be applied to any interaction between two human beings in an attempt to strategize it, and has many real-world applications, such as determining the best possible business decision to maximize profits between two companies, or determining the best possible phrase to say in a scenario. So to start off, let's take a look at the simple everyday scenario of love confession in mathematical quadrant form. So the decision to either confess to someone or reject someone plays a significant role in most people's lives. So it's fitting to have the most logical of subjects, math, as your secret weapon in making a decision. Game theory would state that your decision would result in the best possible outcome for you, regardless of the decision that your partner makes, thus being dubbed the dominant strategy. That being said, let's take a look at the two choices you as an individual can make in the process of confessing your feelings mathematically. So you can either choose to confess or reject someone / remain silent. If you choose to confess to someone and they choose to return your confession and accept your confession or confess also, then you would both result in a happy outcome or positive outcome, hypothetically. If you choose to confess and your partner chooses to reject you or remain silent, then you would arrive at a sad or negative outcome, while your partner would arrive at an unaffected or neutral outcome. If you both choose to reject each other or remain silent, then you would avoid the topic altogether and avoid the scenario altogether as well, with both of you arriving at a neutral decision. Unless, of course, a certain topic is involved. So, by construction of the simple 2x2 decision matrix, game theorists can determine that the dominant strategy in this scenario would be to remain silent. This can be seen in the decision probabilities matrix in this decision matrix. If you, as an individual, choose to confess to someone, then you would have a 50% chance of arriving at a positive outcome and a 50% chance at arriving at a negative outcome. However, if you choose to remain silent, then you would have a 100% chance, a guaranteed chance to arrive at a neutral or unaffected outcome. Thus, the dominant strategy in this scenario, as game theorists would put it. This is an illustration of the trembling hands equilibrium, which is essentially the belief that your partner's trembling hands may accidentally select the wrong decision in your choice-making game. So, in order to play it safe, you'd choose the decision that would result in the most consistent outcome for you, in this case being to remain silent. However, you can see that the dominant strategy is not always the best possible strategy that a scenario can offer. In this scenario, in the decision matrix, people can see that the true best possible outcome would result if both people had confessed, resulting in two positive outcomes for both people. If the choices of the two individuals were interdependent of another rather than independent of another, and the two people present in the game were able to view the choices of the other, then instead of resulting in a trembling hands equilibrium, this game would result in a Nash equilibrium, which is essentially the outcome, the best optimal outcome that results in this game when both people consider decisions that the other can make and essentially play as a team. So in this case, the Nash equilibrium would be to confess, as if both individuals participating in this game were able to view the decisions of the other, then the best possible outcome of confessing would be clear. So just to review, the trembling hands equilibrium would rely on independent choice and the belief that you are playing it safe. The Nash equilibrium would result from interdependent choice and the belief that you should play as a team with your partner. So, as you can see, with the help of a little math and psychology, confessing your feelings can be as easy as constructing a math equation. So in real-world applications, game theory is primarily used in economics and business to analyze the best possible business profits that two companies would make if they decide to work together as a team. While it does have some limitations, such as assuming all participating individuals are rational, assuming they are consistent in their decision-making skills, and that they enjoy working as a team, game theory can construct powerful models of sociological behavior in macro and micro sociology, and for the future, develop more rational and logical artificial intelligences that would lessen the barrier between humans and robots. So when used correctly, game theory can introduce new politics, influence policies already existing or new policies, or even spark wars. But for now, it remains a vividly interesting analysis on societal behavior and will continue to do so for the future. Just remember that any decision can be resolved with the help of a little math and psychology.
What an enlightening talk.
Who knew humans could be so intelligent?
Which is why it's time for our brains to take a break again.
What other way than to listen to some music?
In a beautiful cover of Technicolor Beat by Oh Wonder from the talented Carrie, Ma, and Peter Wu.
River walking on the water. Living in a dream, in a technicolor beat, you and me. Spinning on our feet, in a technicolor beat. Caught up in a dream, in a technicolor beat, you and me. In a technicolor beat.
What beautiful sounds humans and pianos can make.
I agree. Before we move on to our last performance, let's thank everyone who has stayed until now.
This is the last performance, the moment that we've been waiting for, moment for voices and rap to end us off. Please welcome Vocal Fusion performing Hamilton.
How does a bastard, orphan, son of a whore and a Scotsman, dropped in the middle of a forgotten spot in the Caribbean, Providence, impoverished and squalor, grow up to be a hero and a scholar?
$10 founding father without a father got a lot farther by working a lot harder, by being a lot smarter, by working a hot salsa by 14. They put him in charge of a trading charter.
Every day while slaves were being slaughtered and carted away across the waves, he struggled and kept his guard up. Inside, he was longing for something to be a part of. The brother was ready to beg, steal, borrow, or barter. Then the hurricane came and devastation reigned. Our man saw his future dripping down the drain. Put a pencil to his temple, connected it to his brain, and he wrote his first refrain, a testament to his pain.
Well, the word got around, they said this kid was insane, man. Took up a collection just to send him to the mainland. Get your education, don't forget from whence you came, and the world's gonna know your name. What's your name, man?
Alexander Hamilton. It's Alexander Hamilton. There's a million things I haven't done, but just you wait, just you wait.
When he was 10, his father split, father dead, written 2 years to see Alexander's mother bedridden, half dead, sitting in the room sick, the scent thick, and
Alex got better, but his mother went
quick.
moving with the cousin committed suicide. Left him with nothing but ruined pride. Something new inside her voice saying, Alex, you gotta fend for yourself. He started retreating and reading every treatise on the shelf.
There would have been nothing left to do for someone less than stoop. He would have been dead or destitute without a cent of restitution. Started working, clerking for his late mother's landlord, trading sugar cane and ramen, all the things he can't afford. Scamming for every book he can get his hands on, planning for the down, sitting now as he stands on the bow of a ship heading for a new land. In New York, you can be a new man.
New York, you can be a new man. In New York, you can just a new man. In New York, you We are waiting in the wings for you.
Waiting in the wings for you.
Never back down. We never learn to take your time. Oh, Alexander Hamilton.
Alexander Hamilton.
America sings for you.
Will they know what you overcame? Will they know you rewrote the game? The world will never be the same. The ship is in the harbor now, see if you can spot him. Another immigrant coming up from the bottom. His enemies destroyed his rep, America forgot him.
We fought with him.
I died for him. Me, I trusted him.
Me, I loved him.
And me, I'm the damn fool that shot him.
There's a million things I haven't done. Just you wait.
What's your name, man?
Alexander Hamilton.
Before we end off the night, let's take a moment to thank our amazing President and Vice President Bill and Jeremy.
Without the speakers, the execs, the beef patty, staff, or students, none of this would have been able to happen.
We hope y'all learned something new from today's event.
And thank you to each and one of you for coming.
Well, first of all, thank you guys so much for coming. I know we've been working on this for quite a while now, and I gotta thank everyone in the club, Ms. Glodon for supervising us in all the meetings, and for everyone who's helped out. We really appreciate it. But now we want to thank our speakers and performers once again. So if you spoke today or performed today, please come up to the stage. Well, you know what, speakers, thank you so much. We got you each a shirt and also like a little gift bag just to show our appreciation of you guys.
Throw the gift bag. Where's Brian's
Okay, Brian already got it. Alright. Well, it's this club, we organized it since last year. At the beginning, we had no idea what was going on, but I'm glad we were able to actually run the club for the entire year last year. And then this year we even took a step further, applying for this TEDx license, buying more food, obviously, and just making the club expand in general. I want to thank all you guys for your support, but if you guys are curious, most of us are in grade 12 in this club, so we'll be leaving next year. But
that's the reason for our theme of Diverge.
Yeah, but that also means there's lots of new opportunities for you guys. So because we're getting booted out of here, there's definitely lots of positions that you guys can apply for because we're getting out of here. So if you guys are interested, definitely stay on Facebook, stay up to date. We'll send applications for executive applications out soon. But thank you so much for coming. As I promised before, we have more food, but that's only if you help us clean up. Yeah. Yeah. So can we get the tables back in order? Get the chairs stacked in stacks of 3, and we'll get the food ready for you.
Thank you, Bill.